uh, pure dick riding by Ryan Garcia. And, I like Ryan Garcia, but I'm not going to support, garbage. And, like, that's the problem with the Deon Sanders fans is that they always support garbage. They always support his garbage. Uh, at 12:04 the video, you're gonna see something here. Watch this.
I've been drinking on this all day too. Check this shit out, dog. Me, I grew up in the hood, El Cajon City, San Diego, California. I've been cutting hairs for almost 4 to 5 years. And I've never been closer to Jesus ever since he has. Thanks to him, bro, I'm not in jail or I'm dead. I swear on Jesus, right? I had a dream one time, bro. That he came up to me, he said, hey, yo, can you listen to him? And guess who was talking to me? Jesus.
Jesus
You know
Sanders.
what's funny, bro? Your birthday's on the 8th. Mine's on the 11th of August. Isn't that weird?
Watch the coke drip right here.
And ever since
He
then,
came to me in the dream. He came to me after the dream. He like was. He texted me like, bro.
I was tripping because I was never Christian. I'm not Catholic. I'm not nothing, bro. And I told Ryan, hey, bro.
Jesus visited him in
I
dream.
said,
Said,
bro,
respect.
Jesus came to me. He said, listen to Ryan, you're a Christian. And
Look at the stupidity.
I told him the fucking dream, bro. Ever since then, he said,
The
hey, bro,
fucking
brother,
dream.
I
You're a
love you.
Christian.
Ever since then, bro, I feel like I'm more protected than anything, bro. So, regardless of haircuts, whatever, bro, I feel closer to Jesus, bro, than anything, bro. And that's
Fucking close to Jesus, motherfucker.
We go to church on Sundays, bro.
You go to fucking church.
Damn, there was a purpose, bro. Reminds you, I met him after Luke Campbell, right after Luke Campbell.
Bro, we going to fucking church. Watch this again. I'm gonna show you.
He came to me in the dream.
20 seconds. Watch the coke drip. Ready? Watch this. I'm gonna show you exactly where. Watch the coke drip.
That's really like that.
It's coming up.
I've been drinking on this all day too. Check this shit out, dog. Me,
Right there.
I grew up in the hood.
You see the
El
sniffle?
Cajon City, San Diego, California.
Look.
I've been cutting hairs for almost 4 to 5 years.
Coke drip. Right there. Right there. Right there. Right there. Right there.
Ever since he has. Thanks to him, bro.
You see that? So you're coked up. You're talking about Jesus. I don't think they were talking about Jesus, Lord the Savior. I think they're talking about Jesus Sanders. Getting drugged up on camera. And then you got a Latino fighter beating the shit out of a fucking black fighter while the Latino fighter's on steroids. Here's Deon Sanders, right? He gets all the support from the black community, and this motherfucker supporting the Latino fighter that didn't make weight and he on steroids. And listen, I like Ryan Garcia, but I'm not gonna support bullshit. It's called having, a moral compass. Like, I'm not gonna sit there and say that, that Ryan fought, that he didn't make weight and whatever. Like, I'm not gonna sit there and support the bullshit. That's the problem with prime sexuals is no matter what Deon does wrong, he knows they're gonna support him. So he's so arrogant now at this point, he doesn't give a fuck. Like, the thing about Deon, he just wants to get his son drafted. His son, Shador, is not a number one draft pick. So these guys are on well-off media, sniffing cocaine, cursing, and talking about Jesus. This is a reflection of prime. Deon Sanders. No other coach is doing this. And, they're unraveling. Even their fans, the fans of Colorado, the fans of Deon, they're over it now. Like, they kind of don't even want to talk about Deon no more. They can't defend it anymore. How do you defend that shit? He keeps out. He has a lot of connections in the media. He has a lot of connections, and he has a whole PR team. And what they do is they release stuff that says like, oh, we're good. They release stuff about the cold weather. It had nothing to do with going to a cold weather team. When Deon said that, what he was trying to say was, his whole point of that message wasn't, oh, he's not going to a cold weather team. That's why people are like, doesn't make sense. It does make sense because it didn't matter about the cold weather team. What he was trying to sell the public on is my son is a number one overall draft pick, either him or Travis. So what he's trying to do is sell the public on he's trying to create PR about his son being a number one draft pick. If his son was a top 5 or a number one draft pick overall, he would have been in the draft this year. And if he was really a number one draft pick, Deon wouldn't be selling it so hard. He wouldn't have to mention it. It's not even time for the fucking draft. Quarterback has a good wide receiver room. Omar Miller should be the starter. He should have been the starter last year. And, when Will Shepard gets there, it's going to be a problem. But Deon recruited 30 fucking wide receivers. He lost his whole running back room, literally. First, second, third, and fourth string running backs. From Hankerson, Alton, to Dylan, to Savion. And the worst thing was when they lost Dylan Edwards, Dylan was like the guy that Deon coached from such an early age. And they say, well, Dylan only had one good game. He only had one good game? Did Dylan Edwards only have one good game? Like, if I pull this up, you're not going to believe Dylan Edwards' stats. He had a lot more than one good game. No, he had one dominant game versus TCU where he had 135 yards receiving. That's an amazing game. He had other good games, Colorado only had 2 good games. Colorado only played well against TCU, and we thought TCU was a lot better than they were. Oh, they were just in the championship game. Well, they lost everybody. Like, they got destroyed in that championship game. So, they were a 5-7 team. They didn't even have a winning record. They didn't even make a bowl game. At the time, people thought it was a great win. They were like, well, TCU, they're going to have at least, 8-9 win team, right? No, they're not. They had 5 wins. Deon only won out-of-conference games. So, the whole point is they go on well-off media. They act like idiots. And, the fans support this crap. And I think it's just unraveling at this point. So, when Deon was hurt and they kept propping Charlie Offerdale up, they kept saying, well, Charlie Offerdale got promoted to second string. They knew Dylan was gone by that point. Let's see Dylan Edwards. So, let's go all the games. So, see all, right? Let's see. Dylan Edwards, recent games. See all. I always like to see the game breakdown, because really, I don't want to just see the stats. I want to see the game breakdown. How many the game split, how he did against certain teams. So they said Dylan only had one good game versus TCU in a win. That was a good game for Colorado. Dylan had 6 rushes for 24 yards. That's 4 yards a carry. So if you would think they would have ran the ball more, right? He had 5 receptions for 135 yards. We know he had 4 touchdowns. That's 27 yards average for receiving. He had 135 receiving yards. Another 24 on the ground. That's one amazing, dominating game. They then play Nebraska. They win 36-14. So Dylan didn't have a good game against Nebraska. He had 9 rushes for 55 yards. That's a 6.1 average. He added 3 receptions for 8 yards. So he had that's a very good game. 9 rushes for 55 yards. That's 2 good games. They play CSU. Double overtime. Dylan had 10 rushes for 57 yards. That's a 5.7 yard average. He's a freshman. They don't have an offensive line. So we're grading Dylan on a double curve. 1, he's a freshman, a true freshman. Number 2, they don't have an offensive line. So when you guys praise Shador, they don't have a line. He still threw for 27 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. What about Dylan Edwards? Dylan Edwards is that's two good games. Nebraska, TCU. That's three good games. 10 rushes, 57 yards. He added 6 receptions for 17 yards. So, I mean, that's obviously not great, the reception part. But, having 10 carries for 57 yards is great. They play so that's three good games right there. Then they play Oregon, 42-6. They get crushed. However, Dylan rushed for 3 rushes for 21 yards. That's a 7-yard average. He added 3 receptions for 9 yards. Not much. I'm not gonna count that as a good game. It's damn sure ain't a bad game when you get 3 rushes for 21 yards. It's probably garbage time, so I'm not gonna say that was a good game. It wasn't a bad game though, and it was against a team that destroyed them. So keep that in mind. 3 good games. One halfway decent game against Oregon. They play USC. 12 rushes for 44 yards. That's a 3.7 average. That's not great. It's not horrible. He had 3 receptions for 9 yards. Right? No. He had no receptions that game. Okay, so we're going to say USC wasn't a great game. They play Arizona State. They won that game. He did not have a good game. 7 rushes, 16 yards. He did add 3 receptions for 24 yards. That's good. Now, Stanford. They lose double. He had 7 rushes for 33 yards. That's a 4.7 yard average. That's a good game. He also added 3 receptions for 24 yards. So that's 57 all-purpose yards. They could have gave him the ball more. Stanford was a good game for Dylan. That's 4 good games. They play UCLA. He had 4 rushes for 12 yards, 2 receptions for 12 yards. That's not a great game at all. Oregon State. He had a terrible game. 5 rushes for 6 yards, but he added 4 receptions, 22 yards. They played Arizona. He struggled. 5 rushes for 10 yards. But then they played Washington State in a blowout. They got blown out 56-14. They got crushed. Cam Ward dominated Shedeur Sanders. And I think Cam Ward is better than Shedeur Sanders. And what I like about Cam Ward, he actually declared for the draft, unlike Shedeur, who just put it on tape, where he had his dad saying, "You're not leaving for the draft." And one of the most fakest stage moments, even for the Sanders family. It was pathetic. "Oh, Deon, you boys ain't leaving for the..." What do you mean you boys ain't leaving for the draft? You think Shiloh's leaving for the fucking draft? For what? What's he in a rush for? He's going to be undrafted free agent. No. Shiloh was never leaving. And so that was about Shedeur, right? So he's telling Shedeur, "You're not leaving, right? You're staying for the..." Like, as if Deon had to beg him to stay. We all knew he was staying. They had a 4-8 season. He wasn't going to go out there against Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. Stop fucking cap, bro. Anyway, so against Washington, who destroyed them, right? Dylan had 7 rushes for 42 yards. That's a 6-yard average. That's a good game. How many good games is that? 6? And then against Utah, he only had 1 carry. However, he had 4 receptions for 39 fucking yards. That's a 9.8 average. That's 7 good games. The narrative that Dylan Edwards had 1 good game is pure cap. Neely started attacking Dylan Edwards because when he left, it hurt them. They never expected him to leave. And I know why he left. He left because NIL money. I don't believe that when Dylan said that he left because he was not being used correctly. There might be some truth to that. But he was saying he wanted to be an all-purpose back. I don't believe that shit. And I'm not gonna sit there and fucking I'm not gonna I'm not gonna sit there and say, well, I'm taking up for Dylan, so everything he did, you know, I'm not gonna go for anyone's bullshit, and that's one thing, about these content creators for Deon is they glaze so bad and they support him so much, and all the bullshit they support it, and there's a few that don't, like Rawhide Media. Shout out, shout out to Coach Hayes. Shout out to Max from Buff Nation. He always speaks the truth. Shout out to Harry O. He always speaks. Those four guys speak the truth about Colorado. Rawhide, Law Dog. Shout out Coach Hayes. Oh, really flawed. Really flawed. Yeah, they speak the truth. So, you know, and that's the thing. Like, Coach Hayes was saying that Deon wasn't doing home visits 4 fucking months ago, and Chico was saying, "How do you know he's not doing home visits?" Anyway, so Dylan had about 7 or 8 good games. And they're like, well, he only had one good game. No, he had one dominating game. So losing Dylan hurt. So what Deon did was he knew that Dylan was leaving. So he had Neely go out there, his fucking mouthpiece, and try to say, well, Charlie was coming up. Charlie is not the type of player that's going to push Dylan Edwards out anywhere. There are 2 different classes of player. You got a walk-on who's been on the 1-11 team, and Deon would have ran his ass out of there, right? If he wasn't a walk-on. He wouldn't waste a scholarship on that guy. And then to sit there and say, like, Charlie's the reason that, Charlie Offerdale's the fucking reason that Dylan left, you gotta be a damn fool. That Dylan doesn't want to compete, but he's playing 2 sports. He's playing track. He's getting better. He came out more muscled. They could slam Cormani. The Cormani is bullshit. How they're saying no team wants him. What do you mean no team wants him? Let's find out if no team wants him. The narrative is just fucking crazy. How they're like trying to just slander Cormani, but you can't do that against Dylan Edwards because Dylan Edwards didn't fuck up. He was. You can't say he was lazy. You can't say Dylan Edwards wasn't put in the work. You can't say anything about him. Teams don't want him. He got picked up in like 2 seconds. Cormani's the number 1 player, cornerback in the transfer portal, and Deon recruited him. So what are you saying? That if Cormani's not good, it's an indictment on Deon Sanders. But stop believing narratives about what Colorado's putting out there, because Deon has a PR team behind him. So they come out with things like Shador's going to be the overall number 1 pick. No, he's not. And neither is Travis Hunter. Did you watch the draft this year? Did you see the quarterback selected? When was the first defensive player taken? If Travis goes in the draft, he's going to be a wide receiver. To an NFL team, I think he projects as a wide receiver. If you feel like he projects as a cornerback, that means he's going to get picked even later. He's not playing both positions. We know that as a fact. So how's Travis Hunter? I think people are conflating and misunderstanding some things. I think they're thinking that Travis Hunter was the number 1 recruit in the nation for college. That doesn't mean he's going to be the number 1 overall draft pick. Now, he did produce in college, but his first year he had 180 receiving yards. The next year, that was at Jackson State. The next year he had 700 yards receiving, 721, 5 touchdowns. That's for a number 1 receiver. That's above average. He did miss 3 games. That's not like. It's above average. Travis doesn't have elite speed. He doesn't have elite size. He doesn't have elite athleticism. He's a very good athlete. He doesn't have elite speed like Deon did. He works hard. He is maxed out at college. He's not going to get a lot better when he gets to the NFL. He's not he's a highly skilled player. He's a very good player, but you guys got to realize there's levels to this. And I think a lot of the casual fans they eat it up when they say, "Well, Travis is a dominant." Name one game that Travis Hunter dominated. Name one game. One game where he had 200 receiving yards. Omari Miller had 195 receiving yards against USC in 2 quarters. My eye test tells me that Travis Hunter is a very good player, but he's not a dominant player. He doesn't have overriding skills like a Randy Moss, like a Terrell Owens, like a Malik Neighbors, like Xavier, even like an Xavier Worthy. Um, Marvin Harrison, he's 6'4". He has elite size. If you don't have elite speed like Tyreek Hill, like Odell Beckham Jr., if you don't have elite speed, elite athleticism, elite size, like a To, like a large receiver, like a Keyshawn Johnson, elite size. You know, he didn't have elite speed, he had elite size. Or elite skills. I think he has Travis Hunter makes very good adjustments. He's very good at catching the ball. You know, he's not a shutdown corner. He got torched by Stanford. I don't want to hear that he was injured. That's bullshit. Um, and another thing, like, you know, Deon left him out there. They didn't make any adjustments. Yet, I think it's bullshit that they pull Cormani because he gives up a slant or two. He's not gonna get better. He wasn't gonna get better like that. Uh, but for the fans, you know, to stop attacking players that are leaving and saying they don't want to compete. That's bullshit. They compete all the time in football. Don't want to compete. They're competing against players. They're competing against other schools. They're competing against their own team all the time. Ones against twos, twos against ones, ones against ones. It's just bullshit. Like, it's a dumb narrative. Like, they're gonna transfer to better schools. Like, dude, don't want to compete. What the fuck does that even mean? Doesn't want to compete. You mean if a player loses, if a player is not starting and the other player is starting ahead of them, and they want to start, they want to play. No player wants to sit the bench. No player wants to sit on the sidelines. So when they transfer, it's not because they don't want to compete. It's because they want to play. Who wants to put all this practice in to sit on the bench? Nobody. And you got to know, sometimes it's just favoritism. Sometimes, like Omari and Miller deserved to start last year. They started Javon Antonio over Miller. Miller was faster. He's just a better wide receiver. It's not even close. So why did they start Javon Antonio? Who knows? Who knows? They play favorites. Even when Miller had a dominant game, Deon said, "Well, I've never seen that in practice." So wait, your freshman wide receiver just had 195 yards in 2 quarters against USC, and you say, "Well, I've never seen that. He never practices like that." That's called cover your ass, Deon. That's bullshit. Like, come on, bro. What are you doing? It's such bullshit. You know, there's certain people on the team that just can't win, and there's others that get a lot of leeway. But Travis is not a dominant player. I see him as a top 20 pick, and that's generous. I see Shador as he's about the 12th to 15th best quarterback in college football this upcoming year, and that's being generous because, and I can name those 15 quarterbacks. Quinn Ewers, better. Dylan Gabriel. I want to put Dylan Raiola so bad. Dylan Gabriel. You got we're going this year. Yeah, you got Dylan Gabriel, Jackson Dart, Cam Ward is better. Jaden Daniels, Cam Rising is better. That's 5 right there, 5-6 right there. You got you're gonna have quarterbacks coming up that are better. You got Quinn Ewers. You got Quinn Ewers. You got the USC quarterback. He threw 6 touchdowns. You know, I mean, Shador is above average, but there's levels to this. So you can number one overall is like dominating. Um, Shador's a good quarterback, but he's not amazing. He's not propelling his team to winning. So I just don't see it. I don't see him being this amazing quarterback. Uh, the Georgia quarterback, Carson Beck, better team, better quarterback. Just a better quarterback. He's more of a pocket passer. Shador is not a big scrambler. Um, so you got him, the quarterback, Jalen Milrow, better quarterback. He's an amazing athlete. He can run. He's got a cannon arm. So you got him, and there's I'll put the rest in the comments. There are. I even take Bowman over Shador Sanders. I would take Bowman over him. If you went by this year, you had so many quarterbacks better than him. And you're gonna have quarterbacks step up. When Deon says we didn't lose anyone, and people say there's no production, this is college football. You're not gonna have production. You need people developing in their first 2 years, so that in their third year, or maybe even their second year, you're gonna have stats. They're gonna have stats. You're not gonna have a bunch of stats sitting behind you in college football. It doesn't work like that. You need time to develop. When you lose guys like Adam Hopkins, Cormani McLean, when you lose guys of the caliber of Dylan Edwards that produces a freshman, that's a weapon. He's the fastest guy on the team. You don't, dude, you lose a lot when you lose a guy like that. When you lose Alton McCaskill, you lost a lot. Something's going on there running back because they didn't even play Courvoisier Smoke. So, the thing about this Colorado team, you got a lot of content creators. They're going to push narratives, and, they're going to push these narratives because, that's what they do. They worship Deon as a god. They should be calling out all the bad stuff he does, and they should praise him for the good stuff. But to sit there and act like the guy's Jesus, he doesn't do anything wrong, it's bullshit. So, that's the rant for today, man. I'll tell you. Basically, to sum it up, Dylan Edwards was a big loss. Shador's not a top overall pick. Neither is Travis. They're both going to go high in the draft, but there's 7 rounds. And keep this in mind, Muhammad Kamara from CSU is a dominating defensive lineman. He went in the 4th round. Kalen Bullock is a safety from USC. And I compare him to Shiloh. Kalen Bullock had a ton of interceptions. He runs a 4.4 40. He's 6'3". He's blazing fast. He's an amazing safety. He had a bunch of passes defensive. He had about 50 tackles this year. He had 3 interceptions. He's had like 10 or 11 career interceptions. He made first team All Pac-10, All American. His PFF grade is amazing. Kalen Bullock is a stud. He went in the 3rd fucking round, and he's the steal of the draft. And to say, well, Shiloh might go in the 3rd round, 3rd to 6th, 3rd to 4th round, 2nd round. I heard, dude, that's nuts, man. Dude, he can't. There's about 100 safeties in college football better than Shiloh. Teams have a starter at free safety, a starter at strong safety. Some teams have a backup and a backup on both safeties. That's better than Shiloh Sanders. So don't give me this crap that He did have a couple forced fumbles. He had 4 forced fumbles. I'll give him credit for that. He doesn't tackle. He takes bad angles. He doesn't have elite speed. When you get drafted, it's going to be you have elite size, you have elite speed, you have elite skills. Size, speed, skills, in production. Or the other one is production, but you're getting drafted based off potential. When you got a guy that's 24, 25 years old and they're playing against 18-year-olds and they're not dominating, they're just doing like good enough. No. They moved Trevor Woods' they moved Trevor Woods. This was a deal with the devil. So Trevor Woods was the safety and Cam was Miles Slusher was the starter safety. He got hurt and Cam came in as the starting safety to cover for Miles. So they had Cam, but Trevor Woods was dominant. He was doing well in practice, better than Shiloh. And so what Deon had to do was moved Trevor Woods, because he couldn't have Trevor on the field with Shiloh, because they both are roaming safeties, and Cam is a cover safety. And so, they're both free safeties. Cam is a cover safety, so you can't have Trevor and Shiloh on the field at the same time, but you can have Cam on the field with Shiloh or Trevor. Deon didn't want to have his son sit out. So what he did was he made the deal with the devil. That's why people are like, well, why is Trevor Woods starting? He's starting at middle linebacker because Shiloh can't play middle linebacker, and Deon wanted to start his son at safety. So what he did was he moved Trevor to middle linebacker and started him to get him out of the safety room because he wanted to start his son. That's despicable. Yeah, so, anyway, it is what it is, man. Fans are waking up. Cinderella season's over. You're going to see this team is already falling apart. They haven't even lost a game yet. They're 2 months. They were 2 months from the season starting. I can't. I see them being a little better than last year. I see them winning 4 games again. And I can name them for you if you want. I'll tell you, they'll beat Cincinnati. They'll beat Baylor. They'll beat. They'll beat. They'll have one. They'll beat one upset team. I don't know who. And they might beat either NDSU, North Dakota State. And out of Nebraska, I think they lose to Nebraska. I think they might lose to CSU, but they could beat them. It's not a game that I could say. I see 4 wins there. Generous, you give them another win, but they're not going bowling. They're not going bowling, bro. Nope. And they could get out to like a 4-1 start, just like they did this year, and lose those last 4 games, because that's when they play Texas Tech, Utah, Arizona's a loss. They're playing Oklahoma State. Come on. Everyone thinks the Big 12 is weak. It's not weak. They just don't have a dominant, top-heavy team. But what they do have is a lot of very, very good teams. And they run the ball a lot. And Colorado they won't be able to stop the run with those weak linebackers. And they won't be able to run the ball. They're just built differently. They're built like a Pac-12 team. Not a good one, but a Pac. They're built on throwing the ball, and the Big 12 is a dominant running conference. You run the ball and you stop the run, and Colorado's not going to be able to do that. Good luck.